Starting off our list at number 10, Andy Dick. Andy Dick has a long history of getting in trouble with the law, and 2021 was no exception. He went through 3 major arrests this year. In June, he was arrested for assault with a weapon. Apparently, he assaulted his boyfriend with a metal chair, and he could have killed him if the police did not intervene. The man was then taken to the hospital, where he was treated for his injuries. A source said about Andy Dick at the time, quote, "It was getting worse and worse and worse. Every day there was some kind of problem. There were signs something was going to happen." Then a similar incident happened shortly after, where he was accused of hitting his boyfriend over the head with a bottle. Apparently they got in an argument and it turned violent. As well, in October he hit his boyfriend again with a frying pan. It was the second time in 2 months that police were called to his house because of a domestic dispute. And at number 9, Fetty Wap. In October of 2021, rapper Fetty Wap was arrested for allegedly running a bi-coastal opioid operation out of Long Island. He was arrested right before he was set to perform at the Rolling Loud Festival, but obviously had to cancel due to his sudden arrest. The Fed said that Fetty Wap was allegedly, quote, "kilogram-level dealer in the operation." FBI Assistant Director Michael Driscoll said about the bust, quote, "The fact that we arrested a chart-topping rap artist and a corrections officer as a part of the crimes illustrates just how vile the drug trade has become." Fetty Wap, along with 5 others, allegedly trafficked more than 100 kilos of opioids and mainly sold them in New Jersey and across Long Island. The ring was allegedly a multi-million-dollar operation between June 2019 and June of 2020, according to law enforcement. And at number 8, Flavor Flav. In October, Flavor Flav was arrested in Las Vegas, accused of battery after attacking a woman. The police report claimed he'd poked her nose, grabbed her, threw her down, then grabbed her phone out of her hand. After the arrest, his attorney said, quote, "In alleged domestic violence cases, there are often 2 sides to the story, and we will explain our side in the courtroom and not in the media." This is not the first time that he's been arrested in Vegas either. He was also arrested in 2015 on substance and alcohol charges. At that time, he pled no contest to misdemeanor driving under the influence and was fined $685 in order to attend a drunk driving school. In at number 7, Jen Shah. You guys already know I've been obsessed with Jen Shah's arrest since it came out because I'm a huge fan of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and for the first time ever we were able to watch her get arrested on live TV, then battle out her case in court. She was arrested by the feds on March 30th of 2021 for allegedly ripping off people in a telemarketing scam. She's now facing charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering, with maximum sentence of 30 years in prison if she's found guilty. The prosecutor claims that Jen, quote, "allegedly ripped off hundreds of people across the country, many of whom were over 55, encouraging them to invest in dubious online projects and selling bogus business services from 2012 to as recently as this month." Viewers were able to watch Jen get arrested during an episode in season 2 of the show, and it seemed as though she got a tip-off call and tried to flee from the arrest. Because moments after Jen left a trip with her friends, the feds showed up looking for Shah. As of now, she is out on bail and denies all of the charges. And at number 6, Hayes Grier. Influencer and former Dancing with the Stars contestant Hayes Grier was arrested in July of this year after allegedly beating up a man and stealing his phone. He was booked in Charlotte, North Carolina after a warrant was issued for his arrest. The charges against him were common law robbery, felony conspiracy, and assault serious bodily injury, according to TMZ. Grier was also accused of stealing the man's $1,200 phone. However, months after the arrest, the charges against Grier were dropped. Apparently, the prosecutors did not have sufficient evidence to prove without a reasonable doubt that Grier was the aggressor in the situation, not the other party. Grier got famous off Vine, then made it to week 7 on Dancing with the Stars in 2015 at the age of 15.
At number 5, we have the Berlin incident, where Ezra was accused of mishandling a woman named Nadia. Nadia threw Ezra under the bus with claims of harassment, who, according to her, happened after Ezra was invited to her Germany apartment in February 2022. Nadia described her 2-year friendship with the actor, but reportedly they failed to meet in person prior to one consensual romantic encounter in 2020. Following this, Ezra reportedly flipped out in February when the two were informed they were unable to smoke inside the home. Apparently, this is where Ezra lost it, and Nadia described telling Ezra to leave multiple times, only for them to begin hurling insults at her. While on this name-calling spiel, Nadia recalled Ezra also walking through her apartment, spreading tobacco leaves on the floor and touching everything in their path, leaving Nadia feeling intruded and disgusting. According to Nadia, it took Ezra an approximate half hour to dip, and when he did, Nadia explained feeling as if she would be physically attacked and felt unsafe overall. Nadia later filed a criminal complaint, which has since been dropped due to Ezra leaving the country. At number 4, we have the sources who claimed Ezra's paranoia in regards to the FBI and supremacist hate group are dangerous. A freshly published insider piece from August of this year dived deep into Ezra's supposed mental health issues, including comments from a number of anonymous sources who expressed utter concern for the actor's well-being. One source claimed it's hard for them to take action against Ezra when they have so many resources. Another said Ezra has been cruising around the States with at least one gun and a bulletproof vest on deck. Additionally, there are allegations that Ezra has grown paranoid of the potential of being stalked by the FBI or KKK clan. This comes following their social media sharing of a video targeting a North Carolina chapter of the hate group. In this same report, there are further allegations that Ezra's 2020 Iceland stay included an Airbnb rental that would later become criticized, with locals expressing concerns over supposed cult-esque behavior. At number 3, we have Ezra reportedly being an on-set hazard. It's no secret that Warner Bros. Rumoredly held an emergency meeting due to Ezra's behavior, and their impromptu meetup was apparently made to discuss the actor's future with their studio in revelation of their many arrests. A Rolling Stone source dished that Warner Bros. Initially decided to quote hit pause on any future project involving Miller, including possible appearances in the DC cinematic universe. The insider also spoke with the magazine more about the actor's apparent frequent meltdowns and claimed that while The Flash was still in production that year, Ezra was losing it. However, the same source also said that their meltdowns weren't violent, but that Ezra would think of certain things and lose themselves over the fact that they had no idea what they were doing at the time. Despite, there was another source who informed IndieWire that apparently no meeting was ever held in regards to this. At number 2, we have the mix of scandals that has landed Ezra in their current situation, which is all of their run-ins with the law. Variety was one of the many information outlets who surrounded the topic of the Fantastic Beasts premiere, where they explained how Ezra, alongside Johnny Depp, who was also in deep controversy at the time over the results of his messy defamation trial, were complicating the rollout for the series. This is all in light of Ezra's return to the films from their last 2 entries, where studio officials behind the sequel's release were reportedly more or less forced to back down on any previous plans around promotions and headlining Ezra's presence. The reason for this was Ezra's Hawaii troubles that fell in the same month, and so their constant scandals, which they should be in prison for, along with Johnny's untimely spiral, quickly caused massive headaches for promotions. As a result, Johnny was soon removed from his role due to his ex-wife's AB allegations against him. At number 1, we have the one thing that Ezra should be, and most likely will actually be in prison for, and that is their burglary indictment. They were hit with this charge most recently earlier this month when Vermont State Police made the announcement that the actor had been arraigned for burglary involving a residence in Vermont that had several alcohol beverages stolen while the homeowners were away, apparently by Ezra. The investigation soon tied Ezra to the involvement of the crime, and as per police, there was included surveillance footage as well as witness statements to back claims up. On the 7th of this month, Ezra was issued a citation to make a court appearance with a date of September 26.
First up at number 10, Tyga. Tyga was arrested in October of 2021 on domestic harm charges following allegations from his ex-girlfriend, Cameron Swanson. The Media Relations Department tweeted the news that the LAPD had booked him. He was later released on a $50,000 bail. Tyga turned himself in Tuesday after he refused to speak to police that came to his home. A source told TMZ about the alleged altercation. Tyga claimed that Swanson showed up to his home unannounced while intoxicated, and apparently after he let her in, things escalated to violence. But Swanson shared a different story and shared text messages proving that Tyga wanted her to be there and even sent a car for her, because they were in a fight and even potentially about to break up, and Tyga wanted to smooth things over. After TMZ reported that she showed up uninvited, she posted the text to her Instagram story and wrote, quote, "I didn't show up screaming or uninvited. When I tried to leave, he physically assaulted me and refused to let me leave for hours." Adding, quote, "I'm so embarrassed and ashamed it had to get like this, but I had to stand up for myself." She then posted photos of her face swollen and bruised, claiming that he'd hit her and insinuated that it was not the first time. As of now, there are no more updates on the case. And at number 9, Paul PK Kemsley. Paul Kemsley, known as PK on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, was just arrested on November 23rd of 2021 for driving under the influence. He went to a dinner where he had a glass of wine and then he left in his vehicle. He was then pulled over just off Laurel Canyon, and when breathalyzed, he blew a 0.81, which is just over the legal limit. PK was arrested and brought to the police station in Van Nuys, where he took another breathalyzer test and then blew a 0.073. At the time PK was pulled over and arrested, he was alone. PK's attorney Alan Jackson told Page 6, quote, "PK was arrested and cited on November 23rd on suspicion of a DUI. While out with a business colleague, PK consumed a glass of wine with dinner. PK shared in a statement that he regrets his decision and wishes he would have taken an alternative transportation home that night. The statement added that he takes these charges very seriously and will be cooperating with authorities. This is not the first terrible event that has happened to the couple in the last few months. Just a few months ago, Dorit was held in her home while she was robbed." And at number 8, Alex Caruso. LA Lakers player Alex Caruso was arrested on June 22, 2021 for possession of illegal substances in Texas. Apparently the substances were found in his possession, along with paraphernalia to smoke it with. He was about to board a flight at Easterwood Airport in College Station, Texas, when the TSA searched his bag and found these items. He was then arrested for possession, and they discovered he had less than 2 ounces of the substance on him at that time. He was arrested, then taken to the police station, but was released after posting bond. Caruso attended Texas A&M from 2012 to 2016, and his bond release amount totaled $4,200 with a $552 fine. And at number 7, Polo G. Rapper Polo G was arrested on June 12th of 2021 after he got in an altercation with police officers following a party in Miami where police were called to the scene. He was charged with battery on a police officer, resisting arrest with violence, criminal mischief, and 2 other counts. Reportedly, the rapper was pulled over by cops for no apparent reason, and when an officer tried to cuff him, Polo G fought back and struck the officer. Another officer ordered everyone else in the car to get out so they could search it for weapons or other illegal items. Because he resisted arrest, he was cuffed and brought to the police station. He was released 2 hours later when his bond was paid. Polo G later tweeted about the incident, quote, "They play and foul in Miami and that's been like that for a minute." And at number 6, Bonnie Somerville. Actress Bonnie Somerville was arrested on May 16th of 2021 after she was arrested for driving under the influence in LA. The police tracked down Somerville after the cops got numerous calls about a Mercedes-Benz that was pulled over to the side of the road on Interstate 405. When officers came to investigate, they found Somerville passed out behind the wheel. When the officers woke her up, she told them that she had run out of gas and was waiting to be assisted. But the cops smelled alcohol on her breath, so they tested her. After doing a field sobriety test, she failed and was booked for driving under the influence. She was later released by authorities and she did not give a comment to media.
5. The Senate meeting. A TikTok video was posted this week of a Senate meeting of the Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport Legislation Committee, which took place on October 21st back in 2020. The clip showed Senator Tony Sheldon of the Australian Labor Party being asked about the timeline of the perjury investigation against Heard. Quote, "There was evidence presented in the London court case which suggested false statements were provided in the court case in Australia in 2016. So we're investigating that." In a TikTok video which was viewed more than 400,000 times, the politician said that as he understands it, the former estate manager of Johnny Depp, Kevin Murphy, said in a witness statement that he told Heard by mail, telephone, and in person that she could not take the dogs to Australia because the relevant paperwork and permits were not complete. As the clip came to a close, Lane then confirmed that this directly contradicted Heard's statement at the time of the trial, as she said it was a misunderstanding as she had assumed her husband's assistants had arranged the terrier's passage into the country. Number 4. Falsifying travel documents. Accompanied by her now ex-husband, Heard pleaded guilty to falsifying immigration documents in an Australian court in 2015, stating that she had made a mistake due to sleep deprivation. 2 months later, the actress was officially charged with 2 counts of illegally importing animals, and the case was closed after she pleaded guilty in a Queensland court for falsifying quarantine documents. She ticked a box on her passenger arrival card indicating that she had no animals when arriving by private jet in Brisbane on the 21st of April. For faking the documents, she ended up being placed on a good behaviour bond and copping a $1,000 fine. In fact, according to Guardian Australia, providing a false document on entry under the nation's Migration Act carries a maximum penalty of 10 years and a fine of $117,800 Australian dollars, which is really interesting considering that the actress only got a slap on the wrist for the whole incident, which the Australian public
public collectively felt was quite unfair. Number 3. Perjury. In a statement given to ET, a spokesperson from the Australian Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment said that they are, quote, investigating allegations of perjury by Ms. Heard during court proceedings for the 2015 illegal importation of her 2 dogs into Australia. They added that the investigations are ongoing over allegations that Heard lied under oath. This is incredibly serious as perjury carries a maximum jail term of 14 years, while illegal importation can result in a 7-year stretch under the Queensland Penal Code. In fact, the TikTok video of the Australian Senate actually showed confirmation of an investigation taking place. In the clip, Peter Lane, then listed as First Assistant Secretary of the Compliance Division, said that giving false testimony is an offense under the Crimes Act, so that is what they are now investigating. Number 2. Depp's estate manager. Kevin Murphy, the actor's former estate manager who worked for Johnny Depp for over 8 years, concerned Australian officials when he told the London court that Heard had ordered him to lie under oath to cover up the fact that she flew pets into Queensland on a private jet without even declaring them. In a written statement, Murphy told the High Court that he had repeatedly warned the actress about Australia's strict animal entry rules, but when the smuggling controversy went public, Heard demanded that he provide a false statement to the Australian court saying that she didn't know anything about the requirements. When Murphy said that he was uncomfortable with lying, Heard allegedly said, quote, "Well, I want your help on this. I wouldn't want you to have a problem with your job." He testified that Heard started threatening his job stability unless he cooperated with providing a declaration that supported her false account for the Australian proceedings. Number 1. Witness statements. Now this could definitely be the nail in the coffin for Heard when it comes to her legal trouble that she's still facing in Australia. Murphy, Depp's former estate manager, admitted during his testimony in London that he actually went along with Heard's demands. Quote, "Because of this, I felt extreme pressure to cooperate, despite knowing this would involve being untruthful." He later confirmed that he had in fact been contacted by the FBI and had agreed to provide Australian authorities with a witness statement. A representative for the Department of Agriculture, Water and the Environment confirmed this, telling E! News, quote, "The department is seeking to obtain witness statements, and once obtained, the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions will consider whether the evidence is sufficient to warrant pursuance on the matter." An attorney for Heard criticized the investigation, telling the outlet that the Australian government and the FBI are victimizing a person who has already been adjudicated to be the victim of domestic violence.
At number 10 today, we have Chris Brown. In 2016, Chris Brown was arrested by the Los Angeles Police Department. The singer would be charged after an hour-long standoff with police outside his home. Officers responded to a call that was placed around 3 a.m. from a woman seeking help inside the residence. In the interview, TMZ would later confirm the identity of the woman as Bailey Curran. Bailey would tell officers that Chris Brown had demanded that she leave his home in a really inappropriate way. When the officers arrived at 10 a.m., Chris would tell them that when you get the warrant or whatever you need to do, you're going to walk right up in here and you're going to see nothing. During the standoff, Chris would then throw a duffel bag out the window that contained substances and equipment, which resulted in the star to be arrested. And at number 9 today, we have Cat Williams. Cat Williams was able to escape being arrested after leading police on a motorbike chase in California. The star would find himself in some pretty hot water after he decided it was a good idea to drive his 3-wheeled motorbike on a sidewalk, and this led police on a chase that was later called off to protect bystanders. When officers tried to stop Cat, he rode away and would then proceed to run several red lights while telling one officer that he wasn't going to stop. They had plans to present a felony arrest case to the district attorney's office for a possible prosecution case. However, nothing really came to light about the case as it was never filed. Cat's agent would then later come out to say that he wasn't aware of any of this incident and he declined to comment any further, which is a pretty smart move for an agent if you ask me. Are you guys enjoying this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. At number 8 today, we have Mel Gibson. Back in 2006, TMZ reported that Mel Gibson was arrested. According to the 4-page report, Mel became agitated after he was stopped on the Pacific Coast Highway and was told he was going to be detained for driving under the influence. The actor would then begin to swear uncontrollably as the two stood next to the hood of the patrol car. The deputy would then ask Mel to get inside his car. However, when the deputy opened the passenger door, Mel Gibson would say, "I'm not going to get into your car," and decided to bolt. to his car. Now, Mel didn't get far before the deputy was able to catch him and then proceeded to cuff him and put him in the car. Mel would then later come out with an apology about his behavior and said he was taking the necessary steps to ensure he would return to his health correctly. At number 7 today, we have Jake Lloyd. Star Wars actor Jake Lloyd was arrested following a high-speed chase that resulted in the star losing control of his car back in 2015. A released video would later show that when police tried to pull over Jake in South Carolina, he would try to escape and would venture into Colleton County, where local police had to take over the chase from there. When deputies attempted to pull over the vehicle started to pass other cars on a double yellow line at an increased speed. Jake was driving in a reckless manner and his behavior endangered the safety of the motoring public. Jake would then run the vehicle right off the right-hand side and drove through a fence. The road then ended and he continued to drive down a wooded area where he eventually collided with several trees. Jake was then later arrested by authorities and was charged with reckless driving, failure to stop, and driving without a driver's license. At number 6 today, we have OLB. Wu-Tang Clan rapper OLB was arrested after having a standoff with police who stopped his truck. OLB had just left the recording studio before the altercation broke out. Cops would say that OLB was in a truck with his cousin Frederick, and they pulled over the vehicle around 8:15 p.m. in Crowns Heights by the street crime unit for driving with no headlights on. Something would then discharge and police and OLB would start a standoff. OLB would then blame his cousin for the incident. However, no one could figure out the exact culprit at the time. So OLB was arrested. However, during this time, OLB's cousin would run from the van into a building. However, he would later be caught that night. Since OLB did decide to give up his cousin, he would later be released and would be treated as a witness for the crime.
Halfway through at number 5, Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay, much like Amanda Bynes, faced some troubles in the 2010s. Lindsay got busted for some minor offenses, but one of those offenses landed her in jail for a brief time. After having faced DUI charges a few times, Lindsay was put on probation in 2007 and was ordered to attend weekly alcohol education classes. But after having missed quite a number of them, the judge ruled that this was a violation of her parole and therefore sentenced the actress to 90 days in jail. From the moment she was sentenced, there were some people who believed that she would only serve a few weeks of her sentence because LA County correctional facilities were always facing overcrowding, and since so many of the people who were sent there only served 20% of their full sentence if they were there for non-violent crimes, Lindsay would probably be facing the same fate. As predicted, that's exactly what happened, and she only spent about 14 days in jail and spent the rest of her sentence on house arrest. At number 4, Paul McCartney. Now here's one that is guaranteed to surprise you because it sure surprised me. Paul McCartney was arrested in Japan and spent 9 days in jail before being deported from the country after being caught with 8 ounces of marijuana. This happened in 1980, so it was quite some time ago, but still surprising. This all happened shortly after he arrived in the country with his wife, 4 kids, and his band Wings. For the amount of the drug that the Japanese officials found on Paul, he could have faced a sentence of 7 years of hard labor in the country, but luckily he was released after just over a week in custody and he was deported back to England. He and his band were originally there for a short tour, but since their frontman was detained, the shows had to be cancelled and they were ordered to pay a compensation fee of about £1 million to cover the cancellations of their 11 shows. At number 3, Lil Wayne. In 2007, Lil Wayne was arrested for having drugs and illegal weapons on board his tour bus. As the trial went on, the rapper ended up being sentenced to 1 year behind bars after pleading guilty to possession of a firearm. He ended up being sent to Rikers to complete his sentence and was kept away from other inmates on the island because of his fame. Prison life wasn't so bad for the rapper, as he wrote in his memoir about his time at Rikers. He received fan mail, ate sugar, I don't know what that means, I guess just sugar. He watched sports, American Idol, and played cards, and worked out, and read a lot of books. Compared to many other inmate stories of their time at Rikers, Lil Wayne's experience was a walk in the park. In the end, he was released from jail for good behavior after serving 8 months of his sentence. At number 2, Martha Stewart. TV cooking show host Martha Stewart is basically the equivalent to the stereotypical suburban mom who makes pies for her neighbors and works in the garden in the afternoons. Basically the equivalent to Brie Vanderkamp from Desperate Housewives. The only thing that may set her apart from other people like this is the fact that she spent time behind bars. In 2004, Martha was charged and convicted of a few financial crimes, such as lying to federal officers, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. Her eventual conviction resulted in a 5-month jail sentence, as she spent her time confined to the maximum security at the Alderson Federal Prison Camp in West Virginia. She was also sentenced to 5 months of house arrest and 2 years probation. Martha was released in 2005, and though many people thought her image would take a huge beating, it it really didn't. She immediately got back on her grind and built her businesses back up. Now, years later, her merchandise is being sold in Walmart, among other stores. She's selling books and all kinds of other stuff. Seeing her success, it's easy to forget that she was ever incarcerated. At number 1, Jane Fonda. You wouldn't think that Jane Fonda was a hardened criminal, but think again. Well, she's not a criminal per se, but she has spent some time in jail, most recently following a string of climate protests. In late 2019, Jane was leading weekly climate change protests, which she called Fire Drill Fridays. Her most recent arrest happened in December of last year, a day before her 82nd birthday, where she and a number of other protesters were detained for participating in the demonstration. This arrest followed 2 more that she had faced as a result of her protests. Jane said that up until this recent string of arrests, she hadn't been behind bars since the 70s. At that point in her early life, Jane was arrested after speaking out against the Vietnam War, although her charges were fraudulent drug trafficking and an officer, both of which were inevitably dropped because they weren't true. I think the bottom line with Jane here is that she's not afraid to use her voice and platform to fight for her beliefs, even if that results in getting arrested multiple times in your life.
Reported by Variety at the time, there was a short video floating on the internet depicting a person firstly identified as a quote source at the bar to be Ezra. Apparently the video reveals Ezra seemingly strangling a woman before they tossed her to the ground. Coverage of the clip initially brought about confusion on Twitter because the original tweet, which has since been deleted, was surrounded by claims from several women saying the unidentified subject appeared to be laughing in the video. However, the source from Variety explained things oppositely, going as far as to say that the situation was a serious encounter and how Ezra was escorted from the supposedly heated scene. The same source also detailed that the alleged incident was caused by a group of pushy supporters of Ezra who eventually confronted them at the Iceland area bar. At number 9, we have Ezra's multiple alleged altercations in Hawaii between March and May of this year. Ezra's first report of being locked up came from regional outlet Hawaii News Now in March, where they were arrested on charges of disorderly conduct and harassment. The incident supposedly involved a few Silva Street patrons being roped into Ezra's erratic violence. Hawaiian police stepped forward with claims that Ezra was agitated due to the karaoke-related events that took place in the establishment. Reportedly, Ezra not only tried to harm those involved in the altercation, but also shouted obscenities at them. In the same month, Ezra busted into the bedroom of 2 people who were allegedly granted a temporary restraining order against the actor. The Associated Press confirmed and further reported that Ezra was later charged with harassment. However, the prosecutors dropped the charge as part of a plea deal alongside an unrelated traffic charge. For the latter month, the restraining order was also dropped, but this didn't stop Ezra from being arrested again in the sunny state on the grounds of suspicion of assault. For this incident, Ezra was accused of throwing a chair in a mid-20-year-old woman's head, also mentioned in the 911 call released by TMZ. At number 8, we have Ezra's accusations of an 18-year-old activist. In June of this year, legal documents obtained by TMZ disclosed how the alleged victim, Tokata Iron Eyes, was reportedly prepped by Ezra according to their parents' suspicions. This hasn't fully been disclosed, however we did gain insight from TMZ that the teen apparently met the actor in 2016 at North Dakota's Standing Rock Reservation. If the claims of Dakota's parents are true, Ezra was 23 and Dakota was 12 at the time. The activist's parents detailed how the two grew into an eventual friendship, and how Ezra even flew Takata out to London in 2017 to visit the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them sets as they filmed. Their parents also suggested that Ezra made the decision for Takata to be a non-binary transgender who would go by a new name of Gibson. At this point, Takata would have been 14. Takata's parents further accused Ezra of illegally providing their daughter with alcohol and hard substances while they were underage. When Takata dropped out of their Massachusetts private school, their parents provided Ezra with the blame for this as well. According to them, Ezra dropped by their Vermont home in January to see Takata, who they also claimed had bruises and was missing their driver's license, bank cards, and car keys. The legal documents stated that Ezra often resorted to violence, manipulation, and intimidation to sway Takata as a young adolescent, adding that they had shown, quote, cult-like controlling behavior. A judge has since signed a protective order which prevented Ezra from contacting the family, but it hasn't been served yet, as the authorities have no clue of the family's whereabouts. Still, there is a hearing scheduled scheduled for July 12th. In response, Takada's father explained to Newsweek about how he feared Ezra's quote, state of mind, and debates if they'll lash out at them for their cautionary measures. However, Takada released an Instagram post later which denied their parents' claims, followed by a shared video to confirm their statement. Quote, I dropped out 5 months ago. My friend William passed shortly thereafter. My mind was incredibly impacted and I've needed space and time for the processing of grief. My comrade Ezra Miller, for the entirety of the aforementioned era, has not only provided loving support and invaluable protection throughout this period of loss. My father and his allegations hold no weight and are frankly transphobic, based in the notion that I am somehow incapable of coherent thought or opposing opinions to those of my own kindred, worrying about my well-being. I am now aware of the severity of emotional and psychological manipulation I was made to endure while in my parents' home. At number 7, we have the 12-year-old who was granted an order of protection against Ezra in June 2022. The Massachusetts-based child and their mother were approved of a temporary arrangement against the actor after alleging that Ezra threatened their family with a weapon in the home of their neighbors, as well as behaved inappropriately towards the reportedly non-binary child. The mother explained in a Daily Beast interview how things became heated when she described her friend group as her tribe, which allegedly prompted Ezra to deem her words as cultural appropriation. Apparently there was also an argument about a board game stemming from Rastafarian roots with the neighbor whose racial description is half black. Reportedly it was at this point where the party claimed Ezra began shouting obscenities in her face and suggested they had no idea what they were saying. The neighbor also recalled being caught off guard, especially when Ezra apparently opened up their Sherpa jacket to reveal a concealed weapon with the words, "Talking like that could get you in a really serious situation." Further, according to the neighbor, Ezra then turned to the child and began talking about how he held great power over them and how lucky they would have been to have Ezra as a guidance. In response, the child later detailed to the publication, "They automatically were just weirdly drawn to me and kept talking about how they love my outfit and love my style. It was uncomfortable. I was really nervous. I was scared to be around them after they'd yelled at my mother and she was crying." At number 6, we have reports of Ezra supposedly forcing a mother and 3 children to live on an unsafe farm. In June of this year, Ezra was supposedly caught housing a 25-year-old mom and her 3 children between the ages of 1 to 5 at their Vermont farm. Apparently they introduced themselves in Hawaii and had been staying there as early as April, but the living arrangement sparked concern in the young children's father, with 2 additional sources stepping forward to claim the farm is an unsafe environment for kids. They claim there are unattended weapons around the property, with one even saying the baby allegedly picked up a loose bullet and put it in her mouth. However, the mother has claimed Ezra has helped her and her kids' removal from the quote, violent and X, while also providing a safe environment for her children. The supposed sanctuary was described by the mom as being a healing haven for her and her kids. The mother even alleged that the firearms are stored for self-defense and her kids cannot access them, rather that her children are able to relax with the knowledge of quote, safety and nurturing Ezra has been providing for them.
Coming in at 5, Don King. Don King is an American boxing promoter known for his involvement in historic boxing matchups including the Rumble in the Jungle and Thriller in Manila. However, King has also been investigated for possible connections with organized crime, with the promoter even invoking the 5th Amendment when questioned about his connection to mobster John Gotti. Not only that, but he has also been involved in many litigation cases with boxers for fraud. He was sued by Muhammad Ali back in 1982, with the boxer claiming King underpaid him $1.1 million for a fight with Larry Holmes. Supposedly King called in an old friend who handed Ali a suitcase containing $500,000 in cash and a letter ending Ali's lawsuit against him. Ali was not the only victim of King's fraud though. Larry Holmes was alleged that over the course of his career, King cheated him out $10 million in fight purses, including claiming 25% of his purses as a hidden manager. Holmes sued King and settled for $150,000 and also signed a legal agreement pledging not to give any more negative information about King to reporters. Coming in at 4, Mark Wahlberg, everyone's favorite Boston-born actor who starred in films like The Departed, The Fighter, Boogie Nights, and Ted, has an incredibly long history with the law. In June 1986, Wahlberg and a group of friends chased after 3 black children while yelling racial slurs and throwing rocks at them. The next day, Wahlberg and others followed a group of school children taking a field trip on a beach, once again yelling racial slurs and throwing rocks, while also summoning other people to join in. In August of that same year, civil action was filed against the actor for violating the civil rights of his victims, with the case being settled the next month. However, the biggest case against him came in 1988 when he assaulted a middle-aged Vietnamese man on the street, knocking him unconscious with a large wooden stick and punching him in the eye. Wahlberg was charged with attempted murder and pled guilty to felony assault and was sentenced to 2 years in jail, but served just 45 days. It doesn't end there though. In August 1992, Wahlberg fractured the jaw of a neighbor in an unprovoked attack, with court documents stating, without provocation or cause, viciously and repeatedly kicked a man in the face while another man held the victim on the ground. Absolutely disgusting. Coming at 3, Johnny Lewis. This former actor had a thriving career in the industry before his death in 2012, starring in works such as Drake and Josh, Raise Your Voice, The OC, and Sons of Anarchy. He was also known for dating Katy Perry from 2005 to 2006. However, troubles quickly followed the actor in 2011 when he was arrested 3 times. In January of 2012, he struck 2 men in the head with a bottle while in a fight. The second arrest came 6 weeks later when Lewis attempted to break into a woman's home. He pleaded no contest in the case, with a probation official expressing, I quote, "was very concerned for the well-being of not only the community but that of the defendant." Lewis was ultimately released from jail on September 21st, 2012, 5 days before his death. On September 26, 2012, Lewis and his 81-year-old landlady were found dead at her home. Police had been called after Lewis violently attacked 2 people at the property next door, and the landlady was heard screaming. Upon arrival, the police found Lewis's body on the driveway, and the landlady was found dead inside the house, having suffered head injuries. Coming at 2, Venus Williams. It may come as a shock to some to find out this tennis pro has also had a run-in with the law, and relatively recently. On June 9, 2017, Williams was driving in Florida when another car collided with her SUV before she cleared the intersection. An accident that resulted in the death of a 78-year-old man and injured another person in a second vehicle. Police initially found that she was at fault for the accident, but after reviewing surveillance video, they determined that she had not caused it. On December 21st, 2017, police determined that the accident occurred after Williams' vehicle was unlawfully cut off by a driver who was making a left turn in front of Williams. Therefore, Williams was off the hook. Finally, coming in at number 1, O.J. Simpson. Of course, we couldn't possibly have any other person at number 1. This former football star had a long history with the law, and a very public one at that, with his trial being dubbed the trial of the century. On June 12, 1994, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were found stabbed to death outside her home in Brentwood. Simpson was a person of interest but refused to turn himself in, which resulted in a low-speed police pursuit that was broadcast live on TV with an estimated audience of 95 million people. The pursuit resulted in the arrest of Simpson, with his trial being widely publicized. However, Simpson was ultimately found not guilty, with 100 million people tuning in to listen to the verdict. Following this, Simpson had many more legal troubles, including owing $1.4 million in back taxes, with the football star being arrested in February 2001. However, on September 13, 2007, a group of men led by Simpson robbed a hotel casino and was subsequently arrested before being released in 2013.
Number 10. Illegal importation. In 2015, Heard and Depp defied Australia's Quarantine Act that required dogs entering the country from the US to be declared and spend 10 days in quarantine. The then couple landed in hot water after Heard brought their 2 dogs with her when she visited Depp down under as he filmed the 5th installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Heard allegedly said no on her immigration form when asked if she needed to declare any animals, which resulted in Heard getting in trouble with the Australian government for breaching biosecurity laws. The couple was told in May 2015 that they could either get the dogs out of the country or Aussie officials would put down the pups, named Boo and Pistol. When asked why Depp wasn't charged as well, the prosecutor's office said that there had been a lack of admissible evidence against anyone except Heard. 9. The Australian environment. The country has very strict animal import laws. When you really think about it, it's no surprise that the government came down so hard on Amber Heard. Since Australia is isolated geographically and some of its wildlife are found only on that continent, any disruption to the natural balance, such as the introduction of non-native animals and their associated diseases, could ripple through the ecosystem. Basically, the penalties for offenders are so tough because the country's animals are so vulnerable, and due to the isolation of being on a literal island, the native animals are highly susceptible to visiting animals' contagions because they've never had the chance to develop resistance. So realistically, Heard bringing the 2 dogs into the country without an import permit and without first subjecting them to a mandated quarantine was a recipe for disaster. Number 8. Video apology. The Hollywood couple had to apologize to the Australian public for their terrier's unauthorized visit down under in a very awkward public act of remorse. A scripted video in which Depp says Australians are just as unique as their wildlife. The video was submitted to the court as Miss Heard escaped conviction for for failing to declare the couple's dogs Pistol and Boo when visiting Depp in May. Even Australia's Deputy Prime Minister, Barnaby Joyce, said that the couple were less than willing participants in the video. The actors described Australia as a wonderful island with a treasure trove of unique plants, animals, and people, and warned others to respect its laws. Quote, Australians are just as unique, both warm and direct. When you disrespect Australian law, they will tell you firmly. It is not clear whose idea that video was, but reports said that Australian prosecutors had vetted the dialogue beforehand. Reaction on social media was swift and brutal, with many comparing the short film to government propaganda. Number 7. Her defense team. Another reason why Heard is still facing legal trouble for the incident in Australia is because of her lawyer at the time. The actress's attorney in 2015 was Jeremy Kirk, and he told the court that his client never meant to lie on her incoming passenger card. Kirk said that the actress was simply jet-lagged and just assumed her assistants had sorted out all the paperwork. Quote, she has made a tired, terrible mistake, but that reasoning fell on deaf ears as prosecutor Peter Callahan said ignorance and fatigue were no excuse and that the laws apply to everyone. Kirk reportedly cited video evidence that the actress made in a gesture of contribution over her alleged breaches of Australia's 108-year-old quarantine laws, claiming that his client made no attempt to hide the dogs at Brisbane Airport and she did not understand the meaning and significance of declaring no to customs questions about having animals. 6. Publicity. At the time, the then Agriculture Minister Barnaby Joyce criticized the actress and actor for bringing the animals into Australia without properly adhering to the law. Quote, if we start letting movie stars, even though they've been the sexiest man alive twice, to come into our nation with pets, then why don't we just break the laws for everybody? Joyce, who now serves as Australia's Deputy Prime Minister, infamously said that it's time that Pistol and Boo buggered off back to the United States, so he basically told them to get lost. The comments elevated what might have otherwise been a local spat into a global delight for comedians and broadcasters all across the nation. Surprisingly, a large portion of the Australian public actually agreed with the minister's sentiment, and the couple started receiving widespread criticism down under. The Guardian even ran a dog death countdown ticker, while comedian John Oliver dedicated a more than 6-minute segment to making fun of the whole ordeal. Australia hadn't really heard much of Amber before the incident, but it's safe to say that it was terrible publicity.
Halfway number 5, Johnny Damon. Former All-Star baseball player Johnny Damon was arrested on February 19th of 2021 in Florida. He was charged for resisting an officer after he was pulled over under suspicion that he might have been driving while intoxicated. The suspicion started after witnesses saw him swerve, hit a curb, and drive past a stop sign, according to the police report. After the police pulled him over, it was reported that he was clearly intoxicated, slurring his words and stumbling around. When police tested him, he blew more than 3 times the legal limit, so he was immediately taken away. It seems that his wife, Michelle Megan Damon, was also in the car when he was pulled over because she was also booked for assaulting an officer and resisting arrest with violence. In at number 4, Adam Jones. Former NFL star Adam Pacman Jones was arrested on February 15th of 2021 for getting physical with a nightclub bouncer. He was arrested in Ohio just before 2 a.m., and records show that he hit and kicked the man until he was unconscious. He was charged with misdemeanor assaults, and he posted 10% of his $25,000 bond, the records show. Jones is best known for his time with the Cincinnati Bengals, where he has spent 8 seasons. Most recently, he was playing for the Denver Broncos until he announced his retirement in 2018. Even though he was a great cornerback on the field, it seems he'll be remembered most for his scandals off the field. In at number 3, Chad Wheeler. Chad Wheeler was arrested on January 25th of 2021 after he was accused of domestic harm. According to the Seattle Times, he was accused of harming his girlfriend, then told not to have any contact with her. He was released after paying the $400,000 bail and surrendering any weapons that he had in his possession. Police responded to a call from his girlfriend after she locked herself in a bathroom because the pair were engaging in a physical fight. When she called 911, she told them that she thought she was going to die. She suffered a dislocated arm and was bleeding when police arrived. The report also stated that police officers could hear screaming when they arrived to the apartment. The Seattle Seahawks cut him from their team following his arrest, along with a statement condemning his actions. In at number 2, Salento. Rapper Salento was arrested on February 1st of 2021 for allegedly fatally shooting his cousin, Frederick Rooks, outside of Atlanta on January 21st. Following the incident, Rooks was found dead with several gunshot wounds. The police also uncovered surveillance footage that showed the shot and then cars fleeing the scene. This is not the first time that he's been arrested. Silentio was also arrested in August of 2020 for breaking and entering into an LA home. Apparently he did this because he was looking for his girlfriend. Silentio is known for his one-hit wonder song that went viral in 2015 called Watch Me. The video has been watched more than 1.8 billion times on YouTube since its release. At the time of the reports, he was being held in jail after being charged. No further information has been reported. And finally, at number 1, G-Eazy. After being arrested during New York Fashion Week in September, G-Eazy has pled guilty to disorderly conduct after getting in a brawl in a club. The fight took place at the Boom Boom Room, and he was originally charged with misdemeanor assault after the altercation left another person needing stitches. Since pleading guilty, he has been ordered to complete 3 Manhattan Justice Opportunity sessions, according to TMZ. This program is a sentencing alternative that connects the guilty party with a social worker so they can address the underlying issues in the person's life that caused them to break the law. The altercation at the club happened when the rapper's crew clashed with another at the club. During the brawl, someone from G-Eazy's crew hit socialite Daniel Chetrit over the head with a bottle, and he later needed stitches.
At number 10, Amanda Bynes. This one is pretty minor compared to others on this list, but it's still something to note. Amanda Bynes was facing a lot of issues from 2012 to 2014. Her breakdown was publicly exploited, and it seemed like she was making new headlines every week. Among those headlines were her legal troubles and her reputation of going in and out of jail and courtrooms often. Though she faced legal action for allegedly throwing a bomb out of her window, violating her probation, and a number of hit and runs, one of the few times she actually made her way behind bars was after getting charged with a DUI in April of 2012. According to reports, she was arrested by an officer in the early hours of the morning on April 4th, 2012, after sideswiping a police car. While at the scene, Amanda refused to take a breathalyzer or drug test and then was arrested and brought into custody. Amanda spent 1 day behind bars before making her $5,000 bail. This incident only added to her long list of felonies to come. At number 9, Khloe Kardashian. This instance is a pretty good example of fame getting you out of trouble. Khloe Kardashian was arrested and charged with a DUI and was originally sentenced to probation and community service for her crime, but after violating her probation and skipping her scheduled dates for roadside cleanup as community service, the judge presiding over her case then decided to sentence the Kardashian to 30 days in jail. Khloe's ride to jail was documented on an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which coined the iconic term, "Kim, will you stop taking pictures of yourself? Your sister's going to jail." A whole mood. Fortunately for Khloe, fame does get you a lot, and it seemingly gets you out of jail. 3 hours after being booked, she was released due to overcrowding, but the real reason was because she was famous. There were other women at the correctional facility who knew who she was, and her presence was causing quite a stir, so they let her go in the end. Before I continue, I want to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video. It really helps us out when you do, so if you are enjoying this video so far, please give this video a thumbs up. At number 8, Robert Downey Jr. We all know RDJ as Iron Man, but before he booked the role as the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist, he was a convict. That's right, for those who may not know or may have forgotten, Robert Downey Jr. had actually spent 1 year in prison for violating his probation. In 1996, Robert was arrested after officers found multiple illegal substances as well as a firearm in his car when they pulled him over for speeding. As a result, he was arrested but was granted probation, which included having to complete court-ordered drug tests. After missing several of these drug tests, Downey was then sentenced for up to 3 years in prison in 1999, for which he served 1 year before being released. Though this offense was pretty major at the time, Downey was then pardoned in 2015 for being one of a set number of people that a California judge found to have turned their lives around after 10 or more years following their offenses. RDJ is now booming with success, so it's understandable that this would overshadow his rocky past. At number 7, Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton is known for her businesses, her bright and bubbly on-screen persona, and is now known for her advocacy against schools like Provo Canyon, a boarding school where she alleges that she and many other students faced abuse. Though she's now a successful businesswoman, there was a time that she was just a party girl, and this got her into some trouble. Paris was arrested in January 2007 for driving under the influence. For this, she was sentenced to 3 years probation, ordered to pay a $1,500 fine, and was ordered to attend alcohol education classes. Following this offense, she was not allowed to drive, but this didn't stop her, and she was pulled over again by police in February of that same year for speeding and driving without headlights on. This being her second offense resulted in the judge being being less lenient on her, and she was sentenced to 45 days in jail. 3 days after being put in jail, her lawyer got her released due to an undisclosed medical condition, which we later learned was anxiety related, but her freedom didn't last too long as she was sent back to jail and was able to serve half her sentence before being released due to good behavior and overcrowding. At number 6, Tim Allen. This is the time of year where people start thinking about Tim Allen. The stores are playing holiday music, commercials are advertising holiday sales, and holiday movies are being dusted off and being enjoyed by all. One of those being the Santa Claus starring Tim Allen. Since he's becoming popular again this time of year, what better time than now to talk about his past crimes? In 1978, Tim Allen was arrested for drug trafficking when he and his accomplice were stopped at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport in Michigan. The actor and company were caught with nearly 1.5 pounds of that illegal pixie dust, so to speak, and were faced with a sentence of life in prison. The prosecution later approached him with a deal to reduce his sentence to 3 to 7 years if he agreed to testify against his partner, which he did, but only ended up serving just over 2 years behind bars. Now that you know this little bit of information, good luck watching the Santa Claus now.
At number 5 today, we have James Brown. James Brown was sentenced to 6 years in prison after the star was caught with illegal equipment while trying to flee from police in a vehicle under the influence. The incident would start after James stormed into an insurance company building and waved the piece of equipment in the air while he complained that strangers were using his washroom. When police would finally arrive at the scene, James would then take them on a high-speed chase through Georgia and South Carolina. The star during the case would even proceed to ram police cars with his pickup truck. When police were finally able to blow out 2 of James's tires, he drove 6 miles on the rims before police were finally able to stop the vehicle and arrest the star. And at number 4 today, we have Randy Quaid. After Randy Quaid once tried to cross the border to escape law enforcement. Randy and his wife were wanted in Santa Barbara for failing to show up for a court hearing in 2010 for a burglary case. Initially, the two were found living in a home that wasn't theirs. In order to escape law enforcement, the two would then head to Canada in the hopes that they would cross the borders and escape the charges. However, Canada didn't want them, and in 2015, they would be arrested at the Vermont border while trying to sneak back into the United States. California then tried to extradite the couple back to the state. However, Vermont denied the process. And today, the warrants are still active for their arrest. And at number 3, we have Ezra Miller. Flash actor Ezra Miller has been making some pretty bizarre behavior over the last few years after committing a series of different crimes around the world. At the start of the summer, Ezra would be accused of trying to hide from law enforcement after they tried to serve Ezra a protective order from the parents of an 18-year-old activist. Another order would then be served, and Miller would then be arrested and accused of stealing 7 bottles from a Vermont home. Since Ezra has chosen to get the help to save his career and to help him get the help he needs to put an end to his bizarre behavior. And number 2, we have O.J. Simpson. The O.J. Simpson trial was a verdict that stunned the nation after O.J. Simpson was found not guilty for the reasons surrounding the passing of his wife and her friend. In 1994, 5 days after the crime was found, an arrest warrant would be issued to O.J. Simpson. However, before they would find O.J., his lawyer Robert Kardashian would read a troubling note. Just over an hour later, the police were finally able to track down O.J. in the interstate while he was traveling in the back of his friend's white Ford Bronco. O.J. would be captured on video for the whole world to watch as he tried to escape from police for 45 minutes. O.J. would then later drive home and would be taken into custody. And at number 1 today, we have Roman Polanski. For 31 years, Roman lived as the world's most celebrated fugitive. After admitting to having inappropriate relationships with a child, Roman would flee America. However, in 2009, past would finally catch up to Roman, and in 1977, Roman would plead guilty for the charges when he was released on bail, and the star would flee the US a year later and would live in exile, refusing to return to the US even when he won an Oscar back in 2002. However, when Roman did decide to travel to Switzerland to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award, police would arrest Roman and would begin the process to extradite him back to the United States.
Coming in at 10, Matthew Broderick. Star of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you might be wondering what Matthew Broderick, sweet baby-faced Matthew Broderick, could have possibly done wrong. Well, it's incredibly tragic and a mistake that occurs far too often. On August 5th, 1987, exactly 32 years ago to the day, as of the time of this recording, Broderick rented a BMW in Northern Ireland. However, as they drive on the opposite side of the road in America, Broderick got confused and drifted into the wrong lane, resulting in a head-on collision with a Volvo driven by 30-year-old Anna Gallagher, who was accompanied by her mother Margaret. The collision killed both of them instantly. During the time, Broderick was dating his Ferris Bueller co-star Jennifer Grey, who was vacationing with him at the time, with the crash resulting in their relationship becoming public. Broderick also suffered some minor injuries, including a fractured leg, ribs, a concussion, and a collapsed lung. He went on to tell the police that he had no recollection of the crash and wasn't aware he was in the wrong lane. I quote, "I don't remember the day. I don't even remember getting up in the morning. I don't remember making my bed. What I first remember is waking up in the hospital with a very strange feeling going on in my leg." He was charged with causing death by dangerous driving and faced up to 5 years in prison. However, his conviction was reduced and was fined just $175 for 2 lives. Coming in at 9, Jason Williams. For those who don't know, Jason Williams is a former professional basketball player who spent his career playing for the Philadelphia 76ers and New Jersey Nets. He was a fan favorite and an incredibly talented player, however that all changed on February 14, 2002, when his 55-year-old limousine driver Kostas Christofi was shot and killed at Williams' estate in New Jersey. Kostas was hired to drive Williams to an NBA charity event, however they never arrived. The basketball player had been given Kostas and some of his teammates a tour of the house, including his shotgun collection. While playing with one of the shotguns, the weapon accidentally fired, instantly killing Kostas. In April 2004, Williams was acquitted of more serious charges, but the court's jury deadlocked on a charge of reckless manslaughter. He was convicted on 4 counts of trying to cover up the shooting. On January 11, 2010, Williams pled guilty to aggravated assault and was sentenced to 5 years in prison before getting released on April 13, 2012. Coming in at 8, Lane Garrison. Lane Garrison shot to fame when he landed the role on the popular series Prison Break, where he starred as David Tweener Apolskis before going on to star in Shooter and Camp X-Ray. However, Lane has a long history of legal problems stemming all the way back to 2007, when he pleaded guilty to vehicular manslaughter, drunk driving and providing alcohol to a minor after a crash in December 2006 that resulted in the death of a 17-year-old boy. He was sentenced to 40 months in jail and was released in April 2009 and served 4 years of parole, as well as paid $300,000 in restitution to the victims and their families. However, his troubles didn't end there. In 2012, Garrison was accused of slapping his former girlfriend Ashley Mattingly at her apartment in LA. Garrison pled no contest to the charge, which resulted in him attending self-help classes and 52 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Coming in at 7, John Landis. This famous director is known for being the man behind The Blues Brothers, An American Werewolf in London, and of course, Twilight Zone the movie. However, it was the latter that caused the majority of his legal problems. On July 23, 1982, during the filming of Twilight Zone, an out-of-control helicopter crashed, resulting in the deaths of actor Vic Morrow and 2 child extras, with the 3 of them being caught under the aircraft when it crashed. Landis and 4 other crew members were charged with involuntary manslaughter, with the National Transportation Safety Board stating, I quote, "The probable cause of the accident was the detonation of debris-laden, high-temperature special effects explosions too near to a low-flying helicopter, leading to foreign object damage to one rotor blade and delamination due to heat to the other rotor blade." During the trial, prosecutors attempted to show that Landis was reckless and had not told the parents of the children about the proximity to explosives and helicopters, and of limitations on their working hours. He did admit that he had violated the California law regarding regulating employment of children by using the children after hours and conceded that was wrong, but he denied culpability. After a 9-month jury trial, Landis and the rest of the crew were acquitted of the charges. Coming in at 6, Rebecca Gayheart. This actress was a big name back in the 90s when she starred in Beverly Hills 90210, Scream 2, Urban Legend, and Jawbreaker, with the actress still lingering around, even starring in the latest Tarantino film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. However, back in the day, the actress suffered some major legal issues when she struck a 9-year-old boy as he was crossing the street in LA. The young boy passed away the next day. Gayheart ended up paying the family $10,000 for the boy's funeral expenses and was given permission to attend the service, but ultimately chose not to. On August 7, 2001, the actress made a public statement about the incident in which she stated, I quote, "The pain of this tragedy will live with me forever. Despite the allegations in the lawsuit, the facts will establish that this was a most unfortunate accident." Gayheart pleaded no contest to vehicular manslaughter and was sentenced to 3 years of probation and a 1-year suspension of her license.
Halfway number 5, Drake Bell. Former Nickelodeon star Drake Bell, best known for his role in Drake and Josh, was arrested in Cleveland on June 3, 2021, charged with attempted endangerment of children. The documents show he was charged for other crimes relating to indecent activities, specifically towards juveniles. He pled not guilty to the crimes. Apparently the event happened in 2017, the same day that he performed at the Odeon Concert Club in Cleveland. During the sentencing, the victim that came forward, who is now 19, said that she faced physical and mental trauma at the hands of the actor. In her statement, the victim called Bell a quote monster who preyed on her and said that he is a danger. In the end, he was sentenced to 2 years probation and 200 hours of community service on the charges. And at number 4, Trey Songz. Singer Trey Songz was arrested at a football game and the whole thing was caught on camera. The arrest happened after Trey got in a fight with a cop at a Kansas City Chiefs game. In the video, we see an officer come forward and try to arrest him, but then he fights back and tries to stop the arrest. Trey then put the officer in a headlock. His friends were standing by watching, and one friend said, quote, "Trey, don't do it, man." After a struggle, Trey was cuffed and detained. He was charged with trespassing, resisting arrest, and for assaulting a police officer, a low-grade felony. Sources told TMZ that the confrontation started when Trey was being heckled by other attendees in the crowd, and then the officer all of a sudden just went after him. In the clip, you can hear someone yelling at the officers that Trey didn't do anything wrong. And at number 3, Alyssa Milano. Alyssa Milano was arrested outside the White House on October 19th of 2021 for refusing to clear the area during a protest. Milano was protesting for the No More Excuses Voting Right Now cause in Washington, D.C. Apparently, police told the group to disperse or risk being arrested, and when she did not leave, the arrest took place. Milano then tweeted, quote, "I was just arrested for demanding that the Biden administration and the Senate to use their mandate to protect voting rights. Stand with me and tell the Senate and the White House that voting rights shouldn't depend on where you live." And at number 2, DaBaby. DaBaby was arrested while out shopping in Beverly Hills on January 7th of 2021. Apparently, a security guard at the Gucci store called the cops on him after he noticed that he had a gun in his waistband. The security officer was not sure if he posed a threat and got police involved just in case. Beverly Hills police said, quote, "Police made contact with the group after they entered a vehicle and were preparing to leave the area. An investigation followed and a 9mm handgun was found in the vehicle. DaBaby was taken into custody and booked, but he wasn't charged and was later let go." And finally at number 1, David Eason. Former Teen Mom star Janelle Evans' husband, David Eason, was arrested in November for driving with a revoked license. Apparently he was driving in Columbus County, North Carolina, when he was pulled over. When the cop looked further into his record, the cop realized that Eason's license was revoked. He was then charged with possession of an open container of alcohol in the car, but not charged with a DWI. He's due to appear in court on February 16th of 2022. In May, Janelle Evans accidentally revealed that Eason had his license revoked over an unpaid seatbelt ticket when she was getting into a fight with an internet troll. In the comments of a TikTok video, Janelle exposed that his license was suspended for 2 days because that's what happens in the state of North Carolina when tickets are not paid.